Before we get into the video, I need you guys to do me a favour. Number 1, like the video. Also comment. Let me know your thoughts on the story. David Bieber is one of the world's most dangerous men. I mean his crimes, and I mean murder, span across the Atlantic. Now David Bieber is said to have no place in the criminal underworld. Despite being a hitman and being given a whole life sentence, other notorious gangsters would not even claim the US man as an associate. David Bieber was originally born and raised in Fort Myers, Florida. Trained to the tier of a US Marine, David served his country before being discharged for going AWOL. It's safe to say that David was unhinged and displayed various degrees of paranoia. This made him turn to drink and drugs. Now needed to fund his addiction, David began to become a drug dealer and a bodybuilder. Now David left America and came to the UK by obtaining stolen documents. He took on the identity of Nathan Wayne Coleman and entered the UK on the 26th of September 1996 through the port of Ramsgate in Kent. Now David then travelled to Yorkshire, where he spent most of his time working as a doorman and a bouncer in the Yorkshire scene, where he was said to have been controlling the supply of Class A gear in the Leeds nightclubs and pubs and bars. Now David also used his connections to get his hands on a clutch of GUNs. Now firmly a Leeds resident and gangster, doorman and enforcer and hitman and gangster, on the 26th of December, unarmed traffic policemen Ian Broadhurst and Neil Roper had spotted a stolen BMW parked at the junction of Grange Park Avenue and Dib Lane, adjacent to the Leeds betting shop. Officers noticed that the BMW had been fitted with fake plates, and the car belonged to David Bieber. Now when David came back to his car, officers were waiting. They spoke to David about the fake reg. The situation had escalated when David failed to comply with orders. Now as a bodybuilder, David was a hulking, towering frame of a man, and he attempted to dominate the police officers. So backup was called, and PC James Bank rushed to the scene. So Ian Broadhurst, Neil Roper and James Bank had attempted to handcuff David. However, in a flash almost immediately, David pulled out a pistol and squeezed the trigger almost simultaneously. Now police officer Neil Roper was struck in the shoulder and stomach. Police officer James Bank managed to escape. His radio had been struck with a casing. As for police officer Ian Broadhurst, sadly he was struck in the back. The force propelled him to the ground. Now, moving very slowly, and because David was no stranger to GUNs and he was a callous and cruel man, looking at a wounded Ian Broadhurst, David then fired again, striking Ian in the head, and it proved fatal. Now at the time, David was wanted back in America for the alleged aim of bodybuilder Markus Meuller. After this fatal incident, David waved his GUN and then stole a car before making his escape. David then took a taxi and travelled from Leeds and West Yorkshire to the Royal Hotel in Droylsden, where he arrived at 3 p.m. on December 30th. Now David attempted to disguise himself with a pair of glasses and a hat when he went to check in. He also signed for the room as Harris and gave an address of 2 Law Street, Notts. A hotel worker recognised David and then called the hotel owner to explain the situation, to explain that they had Britain's most wanted man in their hotel. The hotel owner then called the police. In the meantime, David Bieber locked himself in his hotel room on the top floor. At this point, he had been Britain's most wanted man for more than a week now. Armed officers went to the scene immediately and they stormed the hotel. Marksmen sweeping the hotel floor by floor and checking all rooms. Arriving at the top floor, they banged on David's designated room, demanding David to give himself up. After a short standoff, David complied. In David's room, there was a hand and 300 rounds of ammo. Now, police believe that David had entered the UK for a Contract K and was a hitman using marine training to commit M's. David was given a whole life sentence in 2004. However, on appeal, it was reduced to life with a minimum term of 37 years. Now, David serving his time in H&P Long Larton, and David did not learn his lesson because he ambushed a woman prison officer, Alison Smith, with a man-made item, and it proved fatal tragically. Again, that's 3 M's attached to David's name and a few multiple M's. Condolences. And this is why he was a feared man. Stay safe, safe,